like what if it looks like they've assassinated the U.S. ambassador to Panama? Well, do we go ahead and invade Cuba only to find out the ambassador was killed in a random street robbery? That would look bad. So they said, no, so we need to make some plans. And as somebody who saw those plans, I talked to two people that worked on the plans, one person that saw the plans. This person that saw the plans told me, he said, look, but what would you want to do? You know, let's say you're the president, you're JFK, and you want to get the time to make a reasoned response if you hear the ambassador to Panama has been assassinated, you know, and it's just right before the coup. Well, you would want the autopsy to be done not at a Panamanian hospital, but at a secure U.S. military hospital. You know, so you would do whatever it took to get the dead U.S. official's body to a secure U.S. military official. You would want to control the evidence as much as possible. You would want to control the release of information to the press so that JFK wouldn't be stampeded into invading Cuba in retaliation only to find out later, well, it really wasn't, you know, an assassination by Cuba. So Bobby was making these plans for 2 months before JFK's murder and actually put them into effect twice. So the mafia had decided we got to kill JFK because this war against the mafia, even a small conviction against Marcello, he gets deported. The Chicago mafia, Sam Giancana's under lockstep surveillance, can't go anywhere without the FBI 10 feet away from him. So that's causing all sorts of problems. Kennedy's getting ready to go after Senator Trafficante in Tampa. And if you can go yourself, read in the newspaper, the week before JFK's murder, all these articles leaked from Bobby Kennedy to the New York Times. The Justice Department's getting ready to go into Las Vegas and run the mafia out of Las Vegas. So the mafia doesn't have Cuba, getting ready not to have Las Vegas, backs up against the wall, especially Chicago, Tampa, New Orleans. What do you do? Well, the coup would do them no good because the Kennedys have issued a rule. Nobody affiliated with the mafia can be part of the coup plan, and the mafia will be banned from Cuba after the coup and will not be allowed to reopen their casinos because they didn't want the Cuban people to think in any way when those troops, U.S. troops went in that, you know, they were going to reinstall a dictator or reinstall the mafia. So the mafia was banned from the coup, banned from reopening their casinos. So what do you do if you're Carlos Marcello? And then Bobby sent his own prosecutors down to New Orleans, didn't trust the local prosecutor, Jim Garrison. So Bobby sent his own prosecutors to New Orleans to put Marcello on trial in New Orleans during the month of November. And so the mafia's backs were up against the wall. So after Marilyn Monroe died, within a month of Marilyn Monroe dying, and we won't even get into that, but the Kennedys didn't kill Marilyn Monroe, I can tell you that. The mafia had no real blackmail material left on JFK. So Carlos Marcello, a year before JFK died, was telling a different FBI informant that you had to kill JFK to end Bobby's war on crime. Whoops. Sorry about that, folks. I will call them back, whoever that is, later after the talk. So Marcello and Trafficante and the Chicago Mafia boss, Sam Giancana, had decided to kill JFK because they didn't have Marilyn Monroe and another girlfriend that JFK shared with Giancana to use as blackmail material anymore. So the murder of JFK was planned carefully for almost a year. And the Mafia looked at all sorts of other things, and nothing would work out. So the Mafia, even though they were banned from the coup plan, Richard Helms was a CIA official, about the number 4 official in the CIA in 1963. He would later become director, was not director in 63, about the number 4 official, the highest hands-on official for operations in the CIA. Everybody else in the CIA higher than him, they go to meetings and talk to Congress. Helms was hands-on, talking to the people who would then go out in the field and do stuff, or order the people that would do stuff. So Helms apparently had kept working with the Mafia to try to kill Fidel Castro. And even when the coup plan came up, remember, the CIA only has a supporting role. JFK gave the lead role in the coup plan to the U.S. military. General Maxwell Taylor, General Joseph Carroll. They had the lead role. Army Secretary Cyrus Vance. They were the hands-on lead guys. And they didn't tell much about Curtis LeMay, but that would come later. So they were making these plans, and so Helms has a supporting role as the CIA, and apparently he kind of resented that. He felt the CIA should have the lead role. And he also wondered, I guess, what would happen if Commander Almeida got hit by a truck before the coup happened. So Helms rationalized to himself, well, I'll keep working with the mafia on a backup plan to kill Fidel Castro. I'll have sharpshooters ready who can shoot Fidel in that Jeep, even if Commander Almeida doesn't come through. And so Richard Helms decided not to tell, and this is what he admitted, he decided not to tell his own FBI director, and he decided not to tell Bobby Kennedy, not to tell JFK, that he, Richard Helms, was having his underlings continue to work with the mafia. And when I say mafia, I mean specifically Johnny Roselli, who was Sam Giancana's man in Las Vegas and Hollywood. Sam Giancana was under the tight surveillance. Johnny Roselli wasn't. In fact, whenever Johnny Roselli went to Miami, the FBI would just have to back off because it was understood Roselli was working for the CIA there. Now, Bobby Kennedy, the CIA director, and JFK, they weren't told about this. Roselli got a couple of his friends to help with this assassination plot, Santo Trafficante and Carlos Marcello. So talk about the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. So you've got the Kennedy coup plan with Almeida, and then you have this little plan over here by Richard Helms to use Johnny Roselli and the mafia to kill Fidel in case Almeida can't. Well, now, let me ask you guys this. So now Richard Helms thought that when Johnny Roselli went to Miami to meet a gangster who had run guns to Cuba named Jack Ruby, Richard Helms was told they were working on the plot to kill Fidel Castro. Now, who do you think Johnny Roselli and Jack Ruby were really talking about killing? It wasn't Fidel Castro. Right under the CIA's nose, they were planning to kill JFK. So you can imagine, when Richard Helms, on that tragic day, November 22nd, heard that JFK had been shot, Richard Helms knew that if what he had been doing without authorization ever came out, his career was over. So he had to bury that stuff deeper than deep, and some of it didn't come out until our first book, Ultimate Sacrifice, and we got more of it in Legacy of Secrecy. But here is an odd thing, People say, well, that means Richard Helms must have killed JFK. No, because if he did, he wouldn't have saved 1 million files that have not been released yet about all this. You would destroy them, because he did become CIA director under Johnson. He became CIA director under Nixon. He could have destroyed all those 1 million files that are still secret, a lot of the files that we quote in here that did trickle out. So he didn't. He knew he had to preserve those files, because if push came to shove, they would all show that he didn't kill JFK, but he had to keep them hidden as long as possible, or his career was over. And of course, once he became CIA director, even easier. So let's flash ahead to JFK's murder on that day. Poor Bobby Kennedy hears his brother has just been killed in an open car in Dallas by a suspected Russian sympathizer. And this is what Bobby thought was going to happen to Fidel Castro 10 days later. So, of course, Bobby thinks, wait a minute, what I was going to do to Fidel, somebody just did to my brother. And you've got to remember, too, this wasn't the first time Bobby had heard about something like this, because 3 weeks before Dallas, in Chicago, JFK had to cancel his motorcade at the last minute because there were reported riflemen. The Secret Service got reported a threat. JFK was going to go and ride the big parade with Mayor Daley, go to a football game. And believe me, Mayor Daley had more to do with JFK winning Chicago than the Mafia did. But JFK had to embarrass his biggest political ally, Mayor Daley, and cancel at the last minute. And I talked to JFK's press secretary, Pierre Salinger, who had to issue 2 fake excuses to the press in the space of 30 minutes. But JFK was told, look, there are gunmen on the loose. They're going to shoot you during the motorcade. You got to cancel. JFK did, and it was kept out of the press, even though, as I quote in Legacy of Secrecy, at least 4 Chicago newsmen knew about it. But in those days before Watergate, newsmen would keep stuff out of the paper. I mean, we didn't know about JFK and all the affairs in Maryland. I mean, if you told me in 1963 JFK was having an affair with Maryland, I mean, you probably would have been committed if you told people that. I mean, we just didn't know. And reporters would keep stuff secret. So the Chicago attempt was kept secret. 4 days before Dallas, in Tampa, Florida, JFK had the longest motorcade of his domestic presidency in Tampa, Florida. That night he had to give a speech in Miami. JFK was told by the chief of police, whom I talked to, and the Secret Service, and the FBI, there's a threat against you here. Just like up in Chicago, there may be some Cuban connection, but we're not sure. By the way, the Cuban